I never imagined that settling into Sunnyside Estates would spark an ongoing clash of wills with the most self-important woman I had ever encountered. At first glance, the community appeared ideal: impeccably trimmed lawns, welcoming residents, and a shared swimming pool that nearly justified the exorbitant Homeowners Association dues. Nearly. What the realtor had neglected to disclose was that our HOA was dominated by Karen Wilcox, a woman in her mid-50s, with a sharp blonde bob and a constant frown, capable of souring fresh cream. My initial run-in with Karen occurred merely 3 days after we moved in. I was setting out my garbage cans at the curb on a Tuesday evening when she strode purposefully across the street, clipboard clutched firmly, her neutral-toned cardigan billowing behind her like a commander's banner. "Pardon me, but collection day isn't until Thursday, and containers may only be placed curbside after 6 p.m. the evening prior," she declared with an overly saccharine grin that never touched her eyes. "It's detailed in the HOA guidelines, page 17, paragraph 3. Have you even bothered to review it?" I offered a calm apology, noting that the movers had mistakenly informed me that Tuesday was pickup day. Karen appeared mildly let down that I didn't push back, letting out a small huff as she jotted something on her clipboard before marching off. I had no idea then that this was merely the first shot in what would evolve into a full-blown suburban skirmish. In the months that followed, I was hit with infraction letters for every conceivable offense: lawn grass exceeding the limit by half an inch, a coiled garden hose in view from the road, and keeping my garage door raised longer than 30 minutes while bringing in groceries. Every citation bore Karen's flourish of a signature, along with a thinly veiled lecture about how everyone must contribute to preserving property values in Sunnyside Estates. In spite of her relentless oversight, I kept my cool, replying politely each time and promptly fixing the issues. This composure only seemed to aggravate Karen further, as though my choice to avoid confrontation was depriving her of the confrontation she secretly desired. I observed that she singled out other recent arrivals as well, yet she reserved a special intensity for me ever since I had politely challenged the need to repaint every mailbox in the development at residence costs during one HOA gathering. Matters intensified sharply once I began working remotely. I had just started my independent consulting firm, which brought a steady stream of shipments containing office materials, electronic devices, and other professional essentials. Karen, who evidently spent her days stationed at her front window surveying the street, quickly registered the increase in deliveries to my address. One afternoon, while I was deep into a crucial video conference with a prospective client, my phone alerted me to a newly arrived parcel. I couldn't break away from the discussion, but I wasn't worried. Our area had always felt secure, and my Ring camera would record anyone nearing the front steps. The meeting stretched on far longer than planned, close to 2 hours, and when I finally stepped outside to collect the box, it had vanished entirely. Reviewing the doorbell footage left me speechless. There was Karen, approaching my porch roughly 20 minutes post-delivery, glancing around suspiciously before grabbing the package and scurrying off. I could hardly process it. The president of the HOA was committing mail theft, a serious federal crime. All because, apparently, she disapproved of the volume of parcels I received. Instead of accusing her right away, I chose to build a stronger case. I installed a second camera, concealed within a decorative planter by the entrance, and bided my time. Predictably, within the following week, 2 additional packages went missing under identical circumstances. On each occasion, Karen would linger until mid to late afternoon, when most people were away at jobs, saunter casually onto my porch while feigning interest in some fabricated rule infraction, then depart with my item discreetly secured beneath her arm. What struck me as especially noteworthy was her refined method. She always toted a stack of authoritative-looking HOA papers, pausing now and then to scribble observations during her neighborhood patrols, providing flawless camouflage for her illicit behavior. She even sported a lanyard bearing what appeared to be an official identification badge, as though conducting legitimate oversight rounds. The brazen confidence was nearly impressive if it weren't so maddening. Later, chatting quietly with my neighbor, Elaine, over our shared fence one evening, I learned that Karen had been wielding ever more despotic control over the HOA for almost 7 years. Nobody dared to challenge her in the yearly board elections. Elaine whispered her warning, glancing around nervously, as if fearing hidden listeners. The previous resident who attempted it abruptly saw their fencing modification request rejected, their pool privileges inexplicably canceled, and their kids prohibited from using the community playground due to supposed misconduct. After the third theft, I possessed irrefutable proof. I reached out to the authorities and submitted a formal report, presenting them with unmistakable video recordings of Karen pilfering my deliveries on several separate instances. The responding officer appeared simultaneously entertained and horrified, remarking, "We've handled plenty of homeowner squabbles in the past, but an HOA president committing package theft is certainly a first for us." The following day, a pair of officers showed up at Karen's residence just as she was conducting the regular monthly HOA board session in her living room, a tidbit I picked up afterward from my neighbor, who held the position of board secretary. He recounted that Karen went ashen when the officers outlined the purpose of their visit, stammering excuses about how she was merely seizing unauthorized goods, which she claimed was within her authority as HOA president. When pressed to show these allegedly forbidden items, she hesitantly guided them to her garage, where they discovered not just my 3 missing parcels, but almost a dozen more belonging to various other residents across Sunnyside Estates. Among them was a prescription shipment that a senior neighbor had reported lost the month before. Karen's justification that she was safeguarding the items pending official HOA clearance collapsed entirely once the officers explained that tampering with mail or packages constituted a federal violation, irrespective of her title. I didn't witness her detention personally, but word spreads rapidly in a close-knit suburban area. By evening, my phone lit up with messages from acquaintances I hardly knew, relaying specifics and voicing their astonishment. Though quite a few confessed they weren't wholly shocked considering Karen's long pattern of exceeding her bounds. The highlight was a note from the board secretary announcing that an urgent session had been convened, resulting in Karen's immediate and unanimous ouster from her role until her legal matters were settled. The exposure appeared to shatter a long-standing enchantment over Sunnyside Estates. Abruptly, residents who had previously kept to themselves began congregating in driveways, exchanging accounts of Karen's oppressive regime. Even more disturbing were the revelations that surfaced: how she had exploited her access to homeowner details to anonymously complain to employers over minor perceived offenses, how she had covertly snapped photos of kids engaging in harmless play on their own yards, and how she had diverted HOA resources to favor enhancements closest to her house while ignoring the broader neighborhood. 2 days on, the police returned all 3 of my recovered packages to my front steps, released now that they had served as evidence. The contents were utterly mundane: a cordless keyboard, business accounting software, and premium printer paper, nothing remotely resembling the illicit materials Karen had apparently envisioned. For my own satisfaction, I reviewed the HOA regulations personally and confirmed there was zero language restricting deliveries in terms of type or quantity. Karen's court appearance arrived sooner than anticipated, thanks to the clear-cut evidence and compelling footage. I testified alongside multiple other neighbors whose stolen items had been recovered from her garage. During the hearing, Karen clung to her haughty attitude, asserting she was simply upholding standards and that we all owed her gratitude for her diligence. The judge dismissed her claims outright. Following barely an hour of statements, he convicted her of mail theft, a federal crime. The penalty was severe: 6 months under house arrest, a $5,000 fine, mandatory compensation every victim, and 3 years probation. As the sentence was pronounced, Karen's expression twisted in outrage, her polished veneer shattering as she grasped that her dominance over Sunnyside Estates had met an ignominious conclusion. "But I was safeguarding our community," she wailed as a court official moved to attach her ankle bracelet. "This is my neighborhood, I'm the one in charge." The sheer incredulity on her face as the truth finally registered remains etched in my memory. That instant, when Karen learned thought no HOA president stands above the law. The delicious irony of her own confinement to the very home she had long used as headquarters for surveilling and dictating everyone else was appreciated by the entire community. With the monitor secured, she could no longer roam the streets hunting for infractions, and Sunnyside Estates exhaled in unison. What followed was extraordinary. Our subdivision underwent a profound change. The initial HOA meeting without Karen drew unprecedented turnout, and we selected a varied board committed to fostering connection instead of rigid compliance. The rules were streamlined from a daunting 87-page tome to a sensible 15 pages of practical directives. The harsh penalty structure gave way to neighborly dispute resolution. The yearly block party, which Karen had axed 3 years earlier over noise complaints, was joyfully revived. My consulting venture thrived, and I earned a reputation, not as the agitator who toppled Karen, but as the spark that reawakened true camaraderie in Sunnyside Estates. Deliveries now reach my door without incident, often greeted by cheerful gestures from residents who at last feel at ease in their own spaces. Interestingly, the property values Karen fixated on preserving have risen since her exit. Evidently, buyers prefer a welcoming environment over one of perpetual scrutiny. The ultimate vindication arrived 6 months afterward. Once her house arrest ended, Karen discreetly listed her house and relocated without a word to anyone. The incoming family hosted a welcoming open house gathering for the whole block, an event that would have triggered countless citations in Karen's day. As I enjoyed lemonade in their yard, observing kids romping freely, while parents conversed without anxious glances around, I couldn't suppress a grin at how one individual's collapse had unlocked freedom for so many others.